Okay, it's 10 o'clock. Good morning. Hope you're already having a great day and that you'll stick around for the full event. This is the session on if you want to go far, go together, how a course is developed. And I'm Cub Khan. I coordinate the hybrid initiative. I'm just here to moderate, just to introduce our presenters. We will have plenty of time for Q&A at the end of the presentation, so be thinking of good questions. I do want to introduce from the far left, Tanisha Tevis from the College of Education, teaches assistant professor in adult and higher ed program. Kathy Becker-Blees, who I've worked with for a very long time, director of the School of Psychological Science. And my colleague Cindy McCarley, instructional design specialist with eCampus. I'm going to turn it over to Cindy.
Hi, everybody. So today we're going to go through quite a few things. I'm going to talk for the first about 20 minutes. We're going to do a little activity, and then I will bring in our panelists for kind of an interview session toward the end. So first, who do we have in the room? How many of you in here teach an online course, either the hybrid modality or fully online? Excellent. How many of you have designed a fully online course before? Okay. How many of you have designed a hybrid course before? Awesome. So our hybrid expert is actually Cub, who introduced us. And so if a hybrid question comes up, I might turn it over to you, Cub. Okay? All right. So the first activity is you should have a note card that Ashley, one of our other instructional design specialists, handed out. And it's, what is an instructional designer? So on the back side, if you could just briefly write down what you think that role is. And just briefly. Okay, you have another card there as well, and it says, what main challenge do you face with teaching your online course? And so we've got a lot of people in here who teach online or hybrid. So what is one main challenge that comes to mind when you think about launching that course or developing it? It could be a grading procedure or classroom management, anything. What would be a challenge that you find for developing that online course or hybrid? Yes.
So it wasn't so much development, but now it's keeping it updated.
That's fine. Write that down. That's good. Okay, what I'd like you to do quickly is just turn to someone around you and just share with them what you think an instructional designer is and a challenge that you might have. And we've got a lot of expertise in the room, so they might be able to solve your challenge for you. So we're just going to take maybe 2 minutes to do this, and then I will talk about what instructional design is from our perspective. 2 minutes.
So it's hybrid. So we meet twice a quarter in person, and they all fly in or drive into Wilsonville. But in the fall, we'll be using the Portland campus.
Oh, you will?
Yeah, that's why. So I got myself a Portland campus.
You are a pioneer, yeah.
Yeah. So so
It's a trip. There's tricks to it. One is to be sure they all buy their campus ID card. Some of those have the buildings. So there's a few other little quirks you can't get to that building when you get down the road.
wait a minute. What do they have to have?
So if you're an eCampus student, you can, I think it's $25, get an ID card. There's no picture on it, but it card swipes you in the building.
Did you know that eCampus students need an eCampus ID card to get into the Portland building? Question mark.
So they can get in during business hours with ID if they're on the list.
Okay, about 20 seconds.
Anyway, there's security issues with it. It's helpful if they get the ID card. And it's been kind of a contentious issue, especially if you're going to be in there after night, like after 5. Or
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, ID cards, and they, also, they're all going to need measles.
Okay, let's talk about this.
And they may have had to have the measles.
So, yeah.
So let's talk first about instructional design. And so here I have a quote from an essay by Ellen Wagner. She wrote an essay on the secret handshakes of ID. So she talks about instructional design as being a systematic development of instructional specifications using learning and instructional theory to ensure quality instruction. And this process starts with an analysis of learning and a needs analysis, you'd say, and looking at the goals. This process informs the development of the learning activities and the learning materials. Through this, then we find a system to put it on. Here at eCampus, we use Canvas in most cases. And then we launch the course, and the final step is an evaluation of how that went. And this becomes an iterative process. That informs the next iteration of the course, and it's one big cycle. It doesn't mean the first time we put material up that it stops there. We're constantly evolving. We're evolving with the times. We're evolving with the student experience. We're evolving constantly. So this is not just you design it once and it's up and ready to go. So let's talk about instructional designers. There are many definitions for instructional design and instructional designers. I came from Australia here to the US, and it's vastly, it's a different name that we use, but it's a similar type of role. But everywhere you go, people have different ideas of what an instructional designer is and what it actually does. Here at eCampus, we have instructional design specialists, and we focus on students. So you can see this word cloud here, and this is some of the stuff where we begin to think when you come to us about developing a course. And you'll notice that the words students and learners are the prominent words up there. That's because as instructional designers at eCampus, we always think about students and the student experience. So when we are looking at the course content, we're looking at the things that come to us, we're thinking about, does this match the credit hour workload? Are the instructions clear that a student that doesn't have anyone to talk to, are they going to understand it? Are there copyrights that we need to acquisition for this course? We have all these things going on, and then we think, oh, are they going to be using a mobile device? Is this going to look right on a mobile device? So as you can see, we've got lots of things that we look at beside the content, because that's what you come to us for. You're the content experts, the subject matter experts, and so we work together. This is a relationship that we work on as we go through the course development process, and that's why we're here today. So I'm just going to unpack a few things about the course development process and to show you how it's a customized approach to you as the instructor or the subject matter expert. The first thing we do as an instructional designer is we ask you what your outcomes are. As a result of this course, what do you want the students to know and be able to do? And that sounds easy, but it actually isn't. So we ask you to think of, 3, 4, 5 main things that they need to walk away with. And then we're constantly focusing on alignment. Do the activities align? How are you going to measure this? And we use more of a backwards design approach. We start with the outcome, we figure out how to measure it, and then all of the learning materials and activities and those kinds of things follow suit. But we're focused on the alignment. Does everything align with each other? Again, as I said, it's a customized approach. We have a wide variety of things that we can do with a syllabus. If you want to make an impact statement with your syllabus, we can do that as long as we have certain policies and procedures in there. I think Dr. Becker-Blees is going to talk about that when we get to the panelist interviews. It's a customized look and feel. No two courses need to look the same. So in this case, we've got Dr. Tevis's courses up here and then one from psychology. And you can see they don't look the same. They kind of have a similar look and feel, but that's only by instructor choice, not because that's something the instructional designer said they had to do. You'll notice the images are different, and there's a particular reason why those images are the way they are, and you might hear that in the panelist interview. Modules, again, when we go into Canvas, Canvas has a certain look when you go in there, but that doesn't mean it needs to be have a similar approach from course to course. You can see here it's customized. Over on this side, this is a WIT course, so there's a lot of instruction to students, and we needed a structure that was going to be very obvious for students so that they can navigate through this writing course. We even put in little icons so that the students knew this is where your writing is, this is where your reading is, this is where your peer review is. In this course here, it's a statistics course, and we wanted to make it very simple because statistics can be overwhelming. So we really looked at how that organization will feel to someone coming into it. And then the far one is from Dr. Tevis's course, and we used a new technology called VoiceThread for her discussions, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. So inside a course, this is how one looks, but this is not how they all have to look. And so in this statistics course, again, we wanted to make sure it felt really easy and natural because statistics can be hard for people. So here we have an overview page. We put in a little video to set the stage for this particular module. And then we have some content that they need to do. We used an adaptive learning system, which was better for the student experience so that they can get those skills that they might not have come to class with. So we've put in an assignment for that. And then the students did an inter-teaching process, which is, they might not have been familiar with that, but we made the directions very simple. We have these little call-out boxes for tips. So it was totally designed around that student experience to make it easy for them. So we do that with all of our courses to customize it to your needs. And you can see it follows up with a rubric. So again, tool recommendations. So this is from Dr. Tevis's class. We used a product called VoiceThread. Plug for my session in the poster session. I'm actually doing something on VoiceThread later today. But you can see she had a challenge which she'll talk about as to why this tool was selected. But you can see we wrote out all the instructions, making it easy for students to navigate, easy to navigate the technology. Here's another tool recommendation. Somebody needed a place to store resources. They wanted students to gather resources out in their field. They bring it back to the class, but then this resource, it's called Padlet, it can be taken with them. It's not contained in Canvas. They can take it with them and bring it to, if they have a job or something else that they want to use it for. So tools are something else we can recommend based on your needs. And with all that said, in a very brief, succinct way, eCampus has a course development training unit. So behind every instructional designer, there is an entire team of people to help us out. So an instructional designer will meet with you and talk to you about your needs, but we might bring in a whole bunch of other partners. Like for instance, I work a lot with Nick Breslin. I have courses that need something customized. We just couldn't find the right match. So he will customize something to meet the needs of that course. And we have copyright assistance, so if we can't get something, somebody else will help me find a way to get that item for the course. We have custom programming, we have multimedia development, we have videographers that are just stellar who can make magic happen on the screen. And so that's all to say that with an instructional designer at eCampus, we have a lot of people who can help make your imagination come to life. And this is a process that we'll go through. So with all that said, I would like to talk to our panelists here about the process that they've gone through to get to where they are with their courses. Okay. Ready?
Yes.
Okay. Actually, I'll stand up. You stand. Okay. All right. So first question. I'm going to send this to you first, Dr. Tevis. What were you thinking about at that first meeting? Did you have any specific goals at that moment you met with your instructional designer?
Hello. So my voice carries. Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay, so most of the time I don't need a mic, but do I need this mic for other people?
Yes. Yes.
Did it pick up the velvety tones in my voice? Okay, so I think when I first was introduced to the idea of having an instructional designer, I was a little nervous. It wasn't off-putting, but as most of us who are faculty in this room, you're not taught how to do your job, but that building the course is your job. Does that make sense? And so everything from content to layout to activities was my job. And so to have someone come along and say, oh, I can help you with that, was I was relinquishing control over something that I'm grateful that I have since, but it was something new. It was something that was a little nerve-wracking that somebody else would help me do my job. But since then, I've really appreciated developing stronger outcomes, alignment of activities to the outcome. As well as improving course engagement. As you can tell, I get them engaged. However, in an online environment with working adults, that's not always, it's like pulling teeth or hurting kittens, right? So kittens are probably easier than cats. So it's been some challenges, but I've been very grateful.
And Dr. Becker, please.
Yeah, so as Cub pointed out, I've designed a lot of courses, taught a lot of courses, and worked with a lot of different instructional designers. But today I'm sort of here with my school director hat on. And the first time that I met with Cindy, our instructional designer, was with actually a team of instructors who we brought together to develop a suite of hybrid courses for the Portland Center. And these were going to be courses in math and statistics and writing and research for transfer students from Portland Community College. And they're going to be transferring quite late, possibly after having had 120 credits at PCC. So their educational history and so forth was unclear to us. And we actually met at Portland Community College as a group to try to set our expectations for what these courses need to be. So in that way, it was a dream scenario because we never have that opportunity in Corvallis, it feels like, to actually think ahead and plan with a group of people what the curriculum should look like. And so as we were meeting, we were doing something really different, like delivering a new location, a new population of students, a new curriculum for it that had a different kind of a purpose. And so what was our goals were to come up with courses that would be super clear and pave the way for transfer students who might have had a whole bunch of experiences in the past. So the templates you saw up there were all of our courses were designed with similar templates so they could find the syllabus, they could find their structure very clearly. The visual syllabi that she showed, and I have a few we can pass around. We're also designed, because it was a hybrid course, we printed them in color and we handed them out because we wanted the students to get the sense that these courses had a similar look and feel and were intentionally designed for them. And that's what we got back from the students on the evaluations as well. So that was a very different kind of process, but the kind of glue that held it all together was our instructional designer, who happens to be Cindy. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to have you go first on the next one. So fears and challenges. Did you have any fears or challenges about designing your courses in the online or hybrid? In your case, it's hybrid here. Mm-hmm. If so, what were they?
Okay, so for this project in particular, we had a group of instructors who were fairly, well, they had a wide range of different types of experiences. So we needed the courses to be more culturally competent, relevant to that population. So we had somebody who had a lot of expertise in that, but had never taught online. It was actually a grad student. We had somebody else who taught a lot online, but hadn't taught a lot at OSU and hadn't taught hybrid. And we had someone else who hadn't really taught in 10 years, but had previously developed courses like at OSU, like 10 years ago. And so I think the biggest challenge was how are we all going to get on the same page and work with this population of students that was new to all of us. And people traditionally, like you were saying, Tanisha, we traditionally think of our classroom as being, we own the whole thing and we have to figure it out ourselves. But how is it going to work if you went from stats to methods to your WIC and the attendance policies differed in those classes when they're hybrid classes, they only meet once a week, and these are students who have very complicated lives. So we didn't want to add any additional barriers by having us all sit around and come up with the best possible attendance policy. So our fears were, how are we going to get all on the same page when we have these expectations about how classes are supposed to run and what our roles are? Yeah.
For me,
Yes.
I think for me, being very social and very personable with my students, shifting that to an online environment seemed a little, it seemed distant to me. That was one of the core parts is my personality, and I teach with my personality, and I engage with the students, and it works depending on the student. And so, and at my last institution, we were just kind of getting into the swing of things. So I was certified in everything, and so I think for me, the biggest challenge was developing a syllabus that would be for an online environment. I can have it because I can explain things in person, right? I can miss things in a syllabus in person. Not that I've done that, but I can, there's some things, I forgot what they call it, but there's some leniency we have with the syllabus when we're in class and we meet with them weekly. But online, you have to be clear because for some, this is a touch point, right? So your online environment is just as much as a touch point for the student as you are. And so sometimes that's the first touch point and from where their questions come from. So I learned quickly that the online syllabus had to be thorough, it had to be complete, and it had to be able to kind of answer some of the questions that the students would have, even if they couldn't get me just yet.
I'm going to ask you a follow-up question.
Okay.
Can you tell us about your experience with me when you came in talking about that social aspect and your discussion forums?
Yeah, so one of the things I used to have my students do is they had to record their initial post. So I gave a prompt, they had to record, they can use SoundCloud, and this is the problem, right? They could use any medium, YouTube, SoundCloud, but then you have different technology. So you have Apple versus PC, and some of the recording devices didn't always play. I couldn't do it. I would have to have students reload. And so it just kind of became a hassle, but also students weren't as engaged. So they had to record their initial post and then type out, they could type after that. And it was actually locked until they recorded their initial post, and then they could engage. But that was also because I didn't have the bandwidth to read 12 pages of written response for every student for a discussion post, but they were doing what I wanted them to do. But then the other problem is they weren't as engaged. So I couldn't get them to log on to read their peers, even if I attached points to it. They were just like, oh, well, I lost 5 points, right? And that is, when you're dealing with deans and adult learners, they're like, oh, well, I lost 5 points, right? And so I needed to figure out how to get them better engaged. And so that's when Cindy introduced me to VoiceThread. And the students actually started to log on because they wanted to see their peers' responses. And then I no longer had to tell them, you have to respond to a minimum of 2 peers. They were literally listening and watching everybody's response. And they could type. The recording mechanism was built in. They can ask questions. They can respond at a certain point within a student's responses. And so it exponentially increased. And you can ask Cindy, there were like 50, 60, 70 responses in VoiceThread for one prompt after that.
Thank you. Support. So this is back to you, Dr. Tevis, after you get your drink. What information or support do you get from your instructional designer that put you at ease?
I think for me, the biggest part is the listening. Again, I have to now relinquish some of my control over my learning environment. And so, and being open enough and having enough respect for the instructional designer to trust them that they know what they're doing, I think is critically important. And so she was a good listener. Cindy, and I've had a couple. They probably left me. God only knows why. She was a good listener, and she had solutions. So I said I had a problem. I wanted my students to be more engaged. I had a problem. They're not clicking into the syllabus. They're not going through the modules the way I wanted. And so with every problem that I named, she had a solution. So on my syllabus, and you'll see even I think on the other one, I have all the modules on the landing page, right? The landing page is incredibly important. And so I wanted them to be able to do that. She was patient, and I am somewhat of a tech geek. And so one of the things that she really tapped into for me was new technology. Like, she introduced me to new technology, and then she also created learning that new technology, not just for me, but for the students. So she has a whole how-to built on the landing page of every piece of technology every week that a student has to use it. And that made it a lot easier.
Okay, Kathy?
Yeah, so we didn't coordinate that much, but I was going to say pretty much the same thing. So we had all these people sitting at the table, and sometimes people jump to the solution before they really identify the problem. And so what was really good about Cindy was she was listening for what the problem people were trying to solve was when those individuals were describing whatever it was they wanted to do in their class. So people might say, I think it's really important they log in twice a week to reply to the discussion board. Well, I don't know if that's important or not, but I know it's going to be a problem if you're requiring that, and then the next one has a voice thread, and then somebody else, And so what Cindy was really good at is getting to the meat of, so you mean you want people to be engaged with the material, or you want them to be talking to peers, or is it that you this? And then when we got to whatever the actual challenge was that you were trying to solve, then that became the thread that tied everything together. So it's like, okay, so everybody wants this to happen. You're all going about it different ways. And I could suggest this technology, or I could suggest, very simple technology, because we didn't have a lot of geeks on our team, or or whatever it was. So the listening and pulling out what people are trying to do and doing it all together was really nice. And also the other thing that's really nice is, although I saw the end result of all of this, once I had that initial meeting with the faculty and the instructional designer, I disappeared and did other things and really didn't hear from any of them, which is great as a school director. So it just kind of happened. So whatever problems kind of came up along the way, I didn't have to deal with, well, so-and-so has different learning outcomes than I do, or whatever, because of the way in which Cindy was listening to them and then bringing up the common goals, and then having the solution. So then I think that would have been a problem if she had no solutions, but she had a lot, she had a lot of solutions. And so all of that worked really, really well. And just to follow up on that, without the support, what tends to happen with faculty, and I'll say from myself too, if I don't have the support and things aren't working with my students, I tend to become more rigid and say, well, then they have to drop the class, or they have to just get it in on time, because I can't deal with whatever's going on. But Cindy had additional solutions that worked for people that allowed them to, for the courses to work better. So everybody wasn't retreating to these kind of really rigid rules that I've seen happen in the past.
And to add to that, one of the processes we did where Kathy became re-engaged in, so we started with Kathy in the process, she went away for a little bit, but then we had an evaluation at the end. So we brought, for one of the courses, we brought the instructors together to unpack. So that was the statistics course, because it is difficult for students. We all came together to talk about the challenges, the positives, the challenges, and how we can mitigate that. And so then there was another launch for the winter, and it's just an iterative process. As I said, it's not just you launch it and it's there for the duration. Okay, next question. So this is to you, Kathy. How would you summarize the next steps after the initial meeting? Can you speak to the collaborative design process between the first meeting and the fully developed course?
Yeah, so I guess we just talked about that a little bit, but just to follow up on what you were just saying, there was a rather major crash and burn situation with one of the courses, because I don't want to paint it as being too rosy, but that's where the support really came in, because, and also in the past, when something crashes and burns in somebody's class, people can be very defensive and say, I'll say myself, I can be very defensive and say, well, it wasn't me, I worked with Cindy for 6 full months and it was beautiful on my screen, or whatever it was. And so the nice thing was, by saying, maybe we should all meet with our instructional designer and figure out what's going on with this course or with these tools. And then I think there have been other sessions on data. We were actually to pull in data and say, it looks like students in here we can tell, stopped engaging at this point in this class. And it became much less about that one individual, any one person or any one way somebody was doing things. So, and you can do that as a faculty member. Like, you can try to just call your colleague in across the hall and have a coffee, but we don't do that very much because it's very uncomfortable. I don't like to do it as a school director. It feels very uncomfortable. But by saying, oh, we should call for help, and then we got on Skype and worked through it, was really helpful. I could say more, but I think actually you're right that the when things went kind of off the road, we got back on the road a lot faster, and students actually really appreciated it too. I don't know if I've told Cindy this, but we actually made kind of a mid-course correction in this, which is really rare. We actually, changed an assignment mid-course. But the way we kind of handled it, it didn't leave the instructors open to students saying, we don't know what you're doing. It was more like, oh, this is going to get better because there's some people working to make it better. And so that I have never actually found have happened in my courses. When I screw up and then I try to fix it, I always get blamed. And so it was really nice to have somebody else, like, just the process was really good that way.
Dr. Tevis.
There's probably twofold. So I will say this, and I don't know if this is going to happen with your ID person, and I kind of feel like instructional designers are like therapists. Don't share them. You hold on to, if you get a good one, hold on to them. But I have a tendency to shoot Cindy an email often when I have questions, but typically the process is we work through our learning outcomes. Again, this is still our course, right? So we know what we want our students to come away with, and we kind of have an idea of what the curriculum is going to be. But we work through that. I send her the syllabus. She creates a fantastic site, and we even go through the whole copyright gig, making sure that the resources are approved and allowable and can be on the site. And then once she creates the site, then again, my autonomy kicks in, right? Like, she'll highlight areas that need to be fixed, need to be addressed, need to be worked out. Now, as you teach the course over the quarter or however long you teach the course, I don't know if anyone else does this. I don't know if you do. I do this. I go through and I take notes on things that I want to do next year, things I want to do better. I'm no longer in development at that point, but I can shoot Cindy an email and say, hey, in my course, you developed this. I don't want to mess up links or modules. Can I take this out? Can I switch this? I want to use this video. A lot of the stuff I've learned on my own. I don't know if any of you use Slack. We're very much Slack friends, and so I act like things are an emergency because I'm semi-dramatic, and so I send a whole bunch of stuff in Slack, and she sends me calming answers that are like, get your life together, it's going to be okay. But then she helps me to kind of refresh it for next year, right? And I feel like that's one of the things that eCampus does, is that once the class is built, that it's not enough. Right, like it's our requirement that it's built, and it's now a shell, and it's a shell for you to constantly improve upon every year, to make sure that the students are getting what they need.
Before I go to the next question, I just want to say, I'm not magical here. All of the instructional designers do the same thing. I just happen to be theirs. So any instructional designer you get will do the exact same thing I do. So I have no magical wizardry or anything. Okay, support. So what would happen, Dr. Becker-Blees?
Yes.
What would happen, or what would be the experience if you had no instructional design support?
Well, I've been teaching online a long time, so I know exactly what happens when you have no instructional design support. Well, and the main thing that happens is people revert to trying to do what they do face-to-face online in kind of whatever way they think works. So you end up with people, they learn about one tool, which might be a discussion forum, and then they try to use it that way. I had somebody who's new to teaching online just say to me, I'm really excited about teaching online. Would it be okay if I record my PowerPoint lectures now? And I said, well, maybe we should meet with an instructional designer and talk about other ways you could engage people in addition to recording PowerPoint lectures. And so what tends to happen is people get really stuck in what they think they know, what they think has worked for them, whatever they've seen. And then, like I said, when it doesn't work, they can kind of get kind of rigid. We can be kind of rigid about, they didn't watch my videos. I just know it. I looked in Canvas and I can tell they didn't watch my videos, and that must be the problem. And now I got to give points on it, or I got to whatever. And so that's, I think, what happens. It happens on campus, but it happens online too. Our instructors, for the most part, in psychology are distributed around the country. So the problem gets magnified when you're alone. At least on campus, there's a hallway, and people can walk down the hallway. And as you're complaining, hopefully somebody can pop out and say, gosh, maybe it's you. Maybe, gently, maybe they could say. But when you're online, not distributed, sometimes you can really get in your head and think it's just all about this. And so that's what I've seen happen with that instructional support.
Okay. And Tanisha, you were trained at your last institution on everything, including Quality Matters.
Yeah.
But what would happen in your experience?
So for me, I feel like this experience has been, in research, I have thought partners, right? So I have people, I don't necessarily publish with them, but there are folks who I run my ideas around and get no's on, and some vetoes and some methodological support, right? And I feel like in some ways that's what an instructional design person is, an instructional designer is. They're my thought partner, right? And so I can work in a vacuum and I can think I am a walking Quality Matters manual, although my Quality Matters instructor kind of hated me. But we worked through it and I passed. But they were, there's multiple things that happen, right? It's understanding Canvas as a whole tool, right? Not just like my colleague was saying, not just a part of a tool, right? Oh, there's a discussion post and there's some of the basics on to the left, right? But it's a whole tool, and there are plugins and tools that you can use within Canvas that we don't even know about. So having her support me in that way, aligning a lot of my activities with my outcomes. I thought I had done that, but I realized that my outcomes weren't as succinct as they needed to be, so that my activities looked unclear, right? And so one thing off really throws off the whole thing, right? And then just learning new technologies. And so I appreciate, even for my in-person classes, Cindy has helped me with some of the activities, because I want them to be an extension of what they're doing online, right? And so not having that means that some things are just missed in the process.
And that's within her hybrid designed classes.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the end of my questions. What questions do you have for our panelists or for myself? Yes, back there. Does someone have a mic, or can I take, oh, that doesn't move.
Really not important.
Okay.
If you feel a need to, you can.
I'll repeat it. Yep. Okay.
I don't think you'll have a problem.
Oh,
so
wait.
I teach
Wait.
Tanisha in the adult empowerment program. I'm currently going through my first experience of transitioning a hybrid course to an online course. And Ashley is my instructional designer. I just wanted to make a comment and agree with most of everything you guys said up there. First, there's a few things that really resonate with me. And the first one is relinquishing control.
Yeah.
Which, for an instructor who's been instructing the course for 10 plus years, initially that was probably a main concern. But what I will say is the calming atmosphere that Ashley provided from the onset allowed me to very easily relinquish control over a lot of things that I thought I was to be doing as the subject matter expert. So first thing, that was amazing to me. So hats off. Congratulations on that. The second thing is the glue, which ties into, you made a comment about the glue, it ties into the idea of relinquishing control. It is amazing what I have learned just through the first few weeks of the experience with Ashley. Again, it's the ability to create trust. And I think that's 80% of the challenge for the first go-around for us as new eCampus instructors. So my point is, thank you. Very much looking forward to a long experience with it.
And just to add to something you just said, as instructional designers, we work as a team. So I work very closely. Ashley and I have a lot of overlap in the School of Education where we do things together. And her and I often talk about how did you do this or how did you do that. So we do have consistency even across the discipline. So instructional designers know who is in that same discipline, and we meet to make sure it's still a similar experience. We're not Lone Rangers out there doing our own thing and not talking to each other. So, so we all have this nice cohesion to help make the courses the best they can be. Any other questions? Deborah.
So one of the things you mentioned in the beginning was wanting to bridge the distance between yourself and your students. And I wondered, and you talked about the Voice Thread example, I just wondered if you found other things in an online environment to be successful. So that was one of the hardest things to do.
Could everyone hear that? Okay.
So there's a couple things, because to Theme's point, we put our master's program completely online, and then we still have a hybrid. So for the doctoral program, I still build those personal connections with them, so I'm still in person. But for the institution is adopting Zoom, but we live by WebEx, and so part of that is also making sure that we have appointments with the students and actually build relationships so that they can see us. I record. I was sick when I did mine, so I have a photo and recorded my voice in the back of it. But I do a lot of recording videos and posting them, a little different than the PowerPoint, right? But I make sure that so that they can see me. And then as a program, we all recorded an intro. So we have an orientation slot online, and all the faculty had to record a 2 to 3 minute introduction for the students to see it. And so one of the students got really excited that there was a Black faculty member in the College of Education, and she was like, I didn't even know. And so just kind of making yourself present, even though you physically can't be, still builds that connection.
Yeah, I would say we did that too in Portland, even though the students were meeting with the instructor once a week. The Zoom office hours really helped with that, especially in the statistics classes. So we would find out that they were spending hours beating their head against the wall, not getting, what the p-value wasn't coming out to the third decimal or something. And then just with the Zoom or whatever they were using, the instructor was able, in, like she said, in 10 minutes to figure out just one thing to tell her about how to set the calculator or something like that. And it was kind of amazing because you see them every week. We had office hours in the Portland Center, and they had class but still in between the week, the Zoom office hours made a huge difference.
Andrea?
Yes. My question is, with hundreds of faculty perhaps wanting to come up with hybrid and eCampus courses, what's the wait to get an instructional person to help you? Like it feels like leaving here, I want to contact somebody right away. And is there a
Yes. So actually, that's one thing I'm going to have you do before you leave is what's an action step that you can take. So if you are interested in getting a course online or getting your department online, Karen Wate from eCampus would be the best person to. She's
here.
right. Oh, yeah, there she is.
Can't see
Okay. So Karen would be a good person to talk to. I will say fall and winter are very full, but we are, I think, looking at spring for developments, but we have a lot of people that have gotten in the queue a little bit sooner. And so yes, so Karen can talk to you about that process. That's above my pay grade.
can I follow up?
Yep,
So you're
yes.
saying like if you wanted to enhance an existing course for
Yep.
the winter, it would be hard to get somebody to help. But could you do maybe not starting from scratch, like components?
If it's already a developed course online and you just have a few minor tweaks, I see Melanie is in the audience. You can send an email to eCampus faculty support or talk to Melanie back there, and she can help out with minor tweaks until you're ready to do a full redevelopment. So Melanie is the face of eCampus faculty support. Anytime there's something that comes up, she can take care of those issues. Croning, she will, if you want to just talk to her, she can give you, do you have a business card with you today?
Okay, thank you.
Oh, she's got business cards, so you can just get one from her. Okay, last question.
Yeah, so I'm from Fisher Tourism Wildlife, and we offer about 50 different courses online now. And but most of them were developed kind of before a lot of the course development kind of process was really perfected, I would say. And I'm interested in Dr. Tevis's comment about the shell concept and regularly updating and working with eCampus on regular updates. I'm not feeling like we're getting that, but maybe that's because we're not asking for it.
I think that's the case. Yes.
What you can tell me as department head, what I should be telling instructors and faculty about how to get small, the smaller changes in working with Melanie, because we don't want to go through the whole update process. It's a
Right.
huge time commitment.
Right.
But we want the courses to not get stale.
Right.
Right. So if there are minor tweaks, as I said, eCampus faculty support is a great option. If you want something more than that, and if there is a large suite of courses, Karen Wate would be the person I would recommend. And she can help you navigate that solution, because as instructional designers, we are passionate about our courses. So if something is stale and wants to and needs a little lift, that's what we would like to do. So we are here to support that process, all of us at eCampus.